Hello, I'm John, and this is a quick walkthrough about how to create a simple Asteroids-like game in P5JS using the p5play game library. Uh, Asteroids is a retro game where you are piloting a spaceship and you have to try to avoid asteroids. And in some versions of the game, you destroy asteroids and earn points. We're not going to get that far. We're just going to work on the very, very basics. This is just sort of to demonstrate some simple concepts in P5JS and with coding to create little games. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I'm going to do is create a sprite. So I have to make a variable to hold that sprite, and then I'll, in the setup area, set the player to new sprite. Now, there are a bunch of ways to kind of move forward from here. What I'm going to do is just make this super simple and use one of the like rocket emojis. So we have something that looks like a rocket. That's pretty good. Now, in most Asteroids games, actually, there's a bunch of different ways that the ship might move. A bunch of different ways to control the ship. In my version, I'm just going to have the ship follow the mouse because I think that's going to be the easiest to set up, and I'm not going to worry too much about making it more complicated than that. So here's how you set up the mouse movement. Pretty easy. We just want the player sprite to move toward the coordinates. So we use the move towards command, and then we put in the coordinates we want the player to move towards, which should be equal to the mouse coordinates. Here we go. Pretty good. That looks fine to me. We got some movement. Now, what I want to do is get my asteroids, and this is sort of the hard part of this game. We want a bunch of different asteroids, and we want them kind of floating around the screen so that the player has to avoid them. Let's start with one asteroid, and then I'll show you how to add like a bunch of asteroids. So, another sprite. Call this asteroid. Asteroid equals new sprite. And then I'll see if there's a good emoji I can use for an asteroid. Yeah, there's a good one right there. We'll use that. Awesome. And here we go. Now I can bump my asteroid around. And so I'll probably have to make some physics adjustments here because I don't want my ship to be able to hit the asteroid that hard. But let's make the asteroid a lot bigger. Let's make the diameter like 100. Okay, so now you can see that the like collider is a lot bigger. I'm gonna get rid of the image because it just makes it harder to see what's going on. Here we go. That's more like it. All right, so we got our asteroid. Can bounce it around a little bit. We got my colliders are a little big, it looks like, but that's fine for now. Cool. Now we've got basic situation going on here. This is fine. Now, what do I want the game to do when the ship hits the asteroid? Well, what I want to happen is I want the game to be over. In Asteroids, if the ship crashes into an asteroid, the ship blows up and it's done. So the next thing I'm going to do is set up a situation where the ship, I'm going to write some instructions for the computer to follow when the ship touches the asteroid. So to do that, first I need to make a new function. And I'll call this one crash, because these are the instructions that I want the computer to follow when the ship crashes into the asteroid. So when it crashes, we want, well, what do we want to happen? We want to end the game. So maybe what I'll do is set the player to be invisible. Yeah, let's just do, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Let's just say image is going to be nothing. Let's see if that works. All right, that didn't do what I wanted. Oh, well, that's just because I didn't actually hook up the function. So I wrote this function, but nothing's happening yet. Let's go ahead and just test it out by putting it here. So no ship. That's great. Okay, awesome. So that's working fine. Now I want that to happen when the asteroid overlaps the player. So let's do this. Overlaps asteroid crash. Oh, it may have started off overlapped. Yeah, here we go. And then, whoop, perfect. Awesome. So that looks like game over to me, sort of. Maybe what I should do is also have like a message that pops up. But let's set that up later. Okay, great, we did it. Amazing. Now what we'll do is set up the asteroid's movement. Now this is the part that is a little interesting. We want this asteroid to kind of float aimlessly across the screen. And to do that, what we're going to need to do is have the asteroid get some velocity. We want to set some velocity. Oop, my camera turned off. Apologies. I'm back. Hey. We want to set the asteroid's velocity, and we'll do that up in the setup. So the way this works is we have two variables, asteroid.vel.x and asteroid.vel.y. Vel stands for velocity, which is referring to speed, and it's speed along these two directions. So if I set this to 10 and this to 5, then what we get is an asteroid kind of flying across the screen. Now that's pretty fast. Let's go ahead and do like 2 and 1. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We can probably go even smaller than that. Let's go like 1.1 and 0.5 maybe. Yeah, that feels right. That feels right. And if I touch it, game over. Amazing. Okay. That feels right. Now, I think maybe even better than this, I would want the asteroid to have a random velocity. I don't want it to be the same every time. I kind of want the game to make this a little bit challenging and have the velocity be different. So I'm going to actually use some the randomizing function, random, and we'll say somewhere between 1 and -1 feels about right. I'll do that for both directions. Now when I hit play, the asteroid's going to have a different velocity every time, which is kind of cool. And maybe I'll also do like a random size. Let's do random, and let's make that like between 50 and 200. So sometimes it'll be really big and sometimes it'll be small. Let's be random. There we go. Okay, awesome. So that's the game thus far. That's asteroids. The problem here is now that I only have one asteroid, and I need to have a bunch. So let's set that up. This is the code that I used to create my asteroid. And I want this to happen a bunch of times. To do that, I'm going to use a construct called a while loop. I'm going to tell the computer, do these instructions a bunch of times and create a bunch of asteroids for me. So to do that, I need to set up a couple variables. First, a variable called count, which will start at 0. And I'm going to actually use asteroids. And that asteroids variable will be a group, not a sprite. Because we want the computer to group a bunch of sprites together. And then I'll set up this. All right, and that should be good. Yeah, we got it. That's excellent. And then I'll set up asteroids instead of asteroid for my overlapping, and everything still is working fine. Awesome. Now all I have to do is have the computer do this a bunch of times. Watch what happens if I copy and paste this. And I need to get rid of that just because of syntax stuff. Now I got 2 asteroids, and both of them will end the game, which is wonderful. But I don't want to have to copy and paste a bunch of asteroids. Instead, what I'm going to do is wrap all of this code in a while loop. So I'm going to say while, do our brackets. And now I need a expression that tells the computer when to stop, or rather when to keep going and when to stop. I have this variable that I made called count, and I'm going to use that in here. I'm going to say while count is less than 10, make asteroids. And every time the computer makes an asteroid, I'll have the computer increase the variable called count by 1. So what's going to happen is the variable called count is going to be increasing every time the computer makes an asteroid. And then once the computer makes enough asteroids, when it makes 10 asteroids specifically, it'll move on and then do the rest of the game. Here we go. My asteroids. This looks great. It's turned out wonderfully. Now, the last thing that is sort of problematic here is my asteroids start in the middle of the screen and then sort of drift off of the screen, which is not really what I want, because then eventually the screen is just empty. So the last thing I needed to set up is a system that brings in more asteroids, which is super crucial. So this is the last thing in the game. I'm going to set up a variable called t, and I'm going to have the computer increase the variable called t every frame. And what that's going to end up looking like is a number that's just going to keep going up. You see how in the top left corner, this number is just going up a lot over and over again. That's great. Now, what I want the computer to do is every once in a while, I want it to add another asteroid into the game. So to do that, I'm going to have the computer look at this t variable, and every time it goes up by, let's say, by 200, we'll have the computer spawn in a new asteroid. So let's do that. The best way to set this up is to use the modulo, which, it's not super important to understand exactly how this works. Basically, modulo is the remainder after division. But basically what this means is every time t is divisible by 200, do some code. That's it. So it sets up a timer that every time t goes up by 200, the computer does something. This is sort of like a timer. Let me group this together so you can see easier. Great. Okay. So every time t goes up by 200, we'll have the computer spawn in a new asteroid. So we'll say let asteroid equal new asteroids, the group name, Sprite. And then we'll have it do the exact same thing as before. We'll just have it do this stuff. All right, and we're good. So now every 200, we'll see a new asteroid spawn in. Wonderful. Now, you may notice that our asteroids are spawning in at the center of the screen. And that's not exactly what you might want in a real asteroids game. And maybe it's not spawning in often enough, right? So what I'm going to do is stop here, and I'll let you move forward trying to adjust those things. Maybe you want the asteroid to spawn in a different location. You could adjust that value here. Maybe you want to spawn off the edge of the screen and then slowly float across the screen. That would be a good feature to add. Maybe you want them to collide with one another. Maybe you don't want them to collide with one another. You can set that up. If you have any questions or you run into any challenges, feel free to leave a comment or ask for help. Otherwise, good luck and happy coding.